Several of the Psalms teach us the beauty of meditation or thoughtful reflection on divine truths. But what can we do when it hurts to meditate, when our every thought seems dark and hopeless? That's the situation for Asaph as he records it in Psalm 77. But we need to notice that in this psalm, he mentions no enemies, no outside opposition. The writer was enduring hard trials, he tells us in verse 2, but his worst conflicts seem to be coming from within. He sought God, but his soul refused to be comforted, verse 2 says. In fact, his most troubling thoughts seemed to be about God himself. He says this in verse 3, "When I remember God, I moan. When I meditate, my spirit faints." He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. He couldn't speak. He knew there was something good to sing about, but he couldn't remember what, verse 6 tells us. The writer's searching spiritual questions reveal the turmoil in his troubled soul. Has God replaced his favor, his steadfast love, and his grace with anger? Has he become a promise breaker? He asks these questions in verses 7 through 9. Maybe you've asked similar questions or will someday. Spiritual depression, like that which Asaph was suffering from, can be debilitating. What do you do then? Well, some of us have just experienced a long winter, coming through a long winter, or what feels like a long winter. When you're stuck in a dark, cold, seemingly endless winter, you might encourage yourself to hold out for spring based on your memory of previous springs. You aren't feeling it then and there. You can't see grass, coming out and trees blossoming, but you remember that happening before. In a similar way, Asaph appeals to the years of the right hand of the Most High, verse 10 says. And no matter how impotent God seemed in Asaph's present nightmare, he couldn't forget about the Exodus. When God led his people like a flock out of Egypt, as he puts it in verse 20, he proved beyond doubt that he is a mighty, holy, and great God. He is a wonder-working Redeemer. And God never changes. So that was encouraging for Asaph, to remember God's mighty works. Like the rest of God's faithful acts recorded in Scripture and in church history and in our corporate memories, the Exodus is our story too as believers. But modern believers have a great advantage over Asaph. His best hope in a time of discouragement was God's rescue by the hand of Moses and Aaron, two highly imperfect people, as the Bible tells us. Christ is the greater prophet, priest, and king who through his death and resurrection led a greater exodus of rescued people from Satan's grasp. And Christ will return to take his people to the promised land. As 1 Thessalonians 4 tells us, in our darkest spiritual moments, let us encourage one another with these words. Let's listen to Psalm 77. To the choir master, according to Jeduthun, a psalm of Asaph. I cry aloud to God, and he will hear me. In the day of my trouble, I seek the Lord. In the night, my hand is stretched out without wearying. My soul refuses to be comforted. When I remember God, I moan. When I meditate, my spirit faints, Selah. You hold my eyelids open. I'm so troubled that I cannot speak. I consider the days of old, the years long ago. I said, let me remember my song in the night. Let me meditate in my heart. Then my spirit made a diligent search. Will the Lord spurn forever and never again be favorable? Has his steadfast love forever ceased? Are his promises at an end for all time? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he in anger shut up his compassion? Selah. Then I said, I will appeal to the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your wonders of old. I will ponder all your work and meditate on your mighty deeds. Your way, O God, is holy. What God is great like our God? You are the God who works wonders. You have made known your might among the peoples. You with your arm redeemed your people, the children of Jacob and Joseph. Selah. When the waters saw you, O God, when the waters saw you, they were afraid. Indeed, the deep trembled. The clouds poured out waters. The skies gave forth thunder. Your arrows flashed on every side. The crash of your thunder was in the whirlwind. Your lightnings lighted up the world. The earth trembled and shook. Your way was through the sea, your path through the great waters, yet your footprints were unseen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron.